What up, world? It's your boy E letting you know we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. That's right, catch us Wednesdays on Visionaries Global Media.
Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering with E studios, letting you know that we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. Catch us Wednesdays and sometimes some other random days. And check out some of the other shows too. Band from Ringside, led by Jason B. Good Cop, Bad Cop with Graham, Matt, and Ryan. And our favorite pod, ROH Revelry with Will and High Five Tom every Saturday. What up, High Fivers? It's your boy Eric Freeds telling you to tune in to ROH Revelry with Tom and Will every Saturday. This week's episode of Nattering with E is brought to you by Century Gloves, your world leader in martial arts. Need gloves made for speed bag, heavy bag, and fitness training? Century Gloves has been helping people like you and I get into shape since 1976. With genuine leather for maximum durability, finger-specific dexterity, and curved cushioning to reduce hand fatigue, Century Gloves will help provide you with the pound-shedding workout you've always dreamed of. Stickers, get your stickers. That's right, folks. Nattering with E now has stickers of the Nattering with E logo, and soon we will have some other exciting and fun stuff for everybody to have. Thanks again for listening to us as always, and get your stickers. DM us on the Nattering with E Instagram page or E_Freeds' Twitter page. This is Nattering with E at the movies.
Caesar? I'm sorry. This is my fault. This has to stop. This isn't the way. You know what they're capable of. Please, come home. If you come home, I'll protect you.
Caesar is home.
What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering with E studios for another episode of Nattering with E at the movies. Today, I've brought on my good friend, Miss Momo Jones. Momo and I met through the man, LOL Mike Peterson, doing one of his streams on In Catering with Mike Peterson. We covered not one, but 2 nights of WrestleMania. And for a show that's typically like 25 hours long, I think it was one of the better ones. So, Momo, what's going on?
Nothing much, dude. Nothing much. Yeah, I agree. That was a really fun time. I shed a few tears that night. Happy tears.
I still have that clip. I should send it to you again, but I have that clip of when you freaked out when the Philadelphia Eagles were in there. Yeah.
That when Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson showed up, that was just fan service, and I don't even care. It was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Sorry, 1 second. So today for Nattering with E at the movies, as you know from our episode in November when we talked about Thomas Jane's 2004 masterpiece, The Punisher, Tom and I at the time went almost 2 hours talking about how great it was. We did a recap of sorts, but today Momo and I are going to be covering the Planet of the Apes saga from the James Franco Rise of Planet of the Apes to War of Planet of the Apes with Woody Harrelson. Um, for the purposes of time, I think like we won't do a recap of every single movie. Like this is what scene for scene happened. Might talk about general themes, things that we like from the movies. Otherwise, we'll be here for 10 hours, and I don't know if anyone wants to listen to a 10-hour podcast.
I
But
would do 10 hours, but also child
yeah,
and
exactly.
dinner.
Exactly. You're like, sorry, I have a life. I can't do it. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, yo, I'm here whenever. Um, so yeah, we let's jump right to do you want to do worst parts of it first or
I was
like
thinking we could do Rise. We could go by movie.
sure, sure. I'll pull that up. So,
Um, yeah, so just a little background on me. This was like my first little experience watching any of the Planet of the Apes movies. Like I didn't watch the Tim Burton one. I obviously didn't watch the Mark Wahlberg version because we don't talk about that one. Um, but I did want to kind of dive right into it. So I did start with the James Franco one. And I think for me, it was definitely it was a slow burn, but you felt like there was a lot of buildup. Um, and I think, yeah, you could say there was a little bit more focus on the humans, but I think that was something that needed to be done only because it was the beginning of why the Planet of the Apes came to be and where all the humans went. So, I mean, I don't knock it for that. Um, I do knock it for there's there's a couple scenes where it's a little bit too slow. Where it's like, okay, when are we gonna get any action? And then we get the one action piece, and like, okay, this is great, but then we get, and then we get and then we get our ending, kind of. I wouldn't even say a mid-credit scene, but it was like an endish credit scene, um, that kind of said, okay, we're in the beginning now. Um, so they made this movie with the intention, like, okay, we this is the beginning of a series of movies. This is the beginning of a series of things. So that's my take on it. Overall I like the movie. It's a slow burn, but you have to remember that it is part of a trilogy.
yeah, absolutely. So, for those of us who are listening who may never watch The Planet of the Apes, regardless of our review, firstly, how dare you? Secondly, secondly, just a little bit of background slash spoilers. This movie came out in 2011. It stars James Franco, Frida Pinto, John Lithgow, and Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis plays Caesar, the ape from the 1970s films. And James Franco plays a scientist who's basically has some ulterior motives in the regard that his father, John Lithgow, suffers from Alzheimer's. So he's trying to figure out how to create a drug that will allow him to reverse the effects of Alzheimer's. So, as one can imagine, they test it on animals first, and then they eventually go to humans. Uh, initially he initially he finds a solution in this chimpanzee. I can't remember if it was a chimpanzee or an ape. I think it was actually an ape, Bright Eyes, who ended up being um, showing great signs of intelligence, and Will literally thought, this is amazing. Like I could test this on my dad. My dad will get better, and it'll be awesome. Uh, Will Superior, this guy named Stephen Jacobs, who, as any movie has like the main antagonist, he starts off as someone who you think Will's buddies with, but really he has ulterior motives. All he's all about is grabbing, making the most money. So they're like, yeah, we'll show the board that Bright Eyes is a genius, and it'll be awesome. The chimpanzee trainers go to get Bright Eyes, and Bright Eyes freaks the hell out. and so immediately she has a panic. She doesn't really have a panic attack, I wouldn't call it. She just like freaks out and they're like, is this the drug or is this like something else? And so ultimately, before she can come and show how good the results are with this drug, she gets basically, I don't want to call it murder, but like they put her down, the security guards put her down. And they're testing afterwards, like, oh my God, like what the hell happened? Is this a drug side effects? And they try to shut down the project. Turns out Bright Eyes was pregnant with who we later figure out is Caesar. And it wasn't that the drug itself had caused her to go crazy and attack the humans. It was she was defending her baby that had just been born. And so I thought that was an interesting theme in the sense that like they treated the chimpanzees as a second class, you could say. And all she was doing was what anyone would do. You protect your young and so forth. And then uh Stephen Jacobs decides, we're going to terminate the project, so we're going to put all of the chimpanzees down. And one of the chimpanzee trainers was just like, no, 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 this is a baby. Like we can't put down any more of these uh apes. We have to literally like keep this ape, and then we'll figure out how to get him to a sanctuary or whatnot. And sorry, a sanctuary. And essentially, what happens is um, Lithgow gets he starts injecting his father with the drug. His father shows great signs of improvement where you're thinking, oh my God, Alzheimer's could be cured. But then the next thing you know, he starts having reverse effects. Caesar starts to grow with intelligence, and you see him getting stronger and so forth. Um, and then there's all these themes where uh, you can see I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to phrase it properly, but you show like just how it shows just how much the humans don't care about anything but themselves, or like the high class doesn't care about themselves. What would you say to that?
I mean, I think it's more so like how we it's a metaphor of how we treat animals just in general,
Mhm.
as far as, testing, as far as how we view them, and we see them like locked in cages to be entertainment for us. Um and then you see Caesar like showing these signs of intelligence, being like, oh, you know, maybe there's more to them, and especially with this drug. And I think one of the things that I did like, in terms of Rise, is that it was never a sense of this is it was never like, oh, it was never the apes just hated humans, right?
Mhm.
It was never the sense of, oh, it like, oh, they locked us up, so all apes are bad. um Caesar's like, hey, not all humans are bad. He wants to be he has a human that he's trusted pretty much all his life, but then he kind of sees the not so nice side of humanity.
Yeah, like the way that that neighbor treated John Lithgow with the when he was having his Alzheimer's attack, we'll call it. Like he accidentally crashes into his car, and then Caesar, like he just wants to be accepted, right? And this guy is literally like he comes at him with a bat at one point because he goes into his backyard, and you just see that like not everybody's going to accept you, sort of thing. So it's sort of a life lesson in that regard, right? Because when you have kids, for instance, they're like, why is this person mean to me? And it's like, not everybody's going to accept you, sort of thing. And you just go through stuff like that. Um,
Hmm.
when one of the saddest scenes to me, well, there were two very sad scenes in this. One was, um, when Will and I guess her name's Caroline, the veterinarian that he starts dating. They take him to what ends up eventually becoming the apes' home base, that Redwood Forest just outside of San Francisco.
Hmm.
And they're coming back. He's still wearing the clothes, and there's that couple with the German Shepherd, or
Mm-hmm.
and the German Shepherd starts barking at Caesar because he views it as a threat to his family, and so you kind of see where the dog's coming, but then he turns around and he growls at the dog, and the dog caves, and there's that moment where Caesar's like, they'll never see me as an equal. They'll always see me as a pet, and Will's been trying to treat him as his son, not as a pet. So I felt like that was a pretty sad scene in that regard because it's like, just that acceptance will never be there. And then the other sad scene for me was when Caesar goes to defend Charles, who's played by John Lithgow, from that nasty neighbor. And like he freaks out to the point where he literally bites the guy's finger off. And he's just, and I guess Charles snaps out of his Alzheimer's thing. He's like, Caesar, he didn't mean it. He didn't mean it. And then they take him to that sanctuary that turns out to be a hell for all these animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty sad, but what do you think?
I think it was sad. I think probably the saddest scene for me, um, not even it had to do with like the sanctuary when um he thinks that he's gonna go home with Will, and they said we can't take you home right now, and like Caesar's like he keeps on signing home, home, home. I
Mm.
want to go home, and they don't take him there. And then pair that with the next time they see him, Will's like, okay, we are finally gonna go home, and Caesar just closes the door on him. And that was like kind of like the wall of I'm starting to, protect my own and be of my own of my own of my own kind, as it were. And I see how we're being treated, and I'm not feeling this. I don't want this, and I know you're a good man, but I can't, there's a level of trust that was broken. Um, so I think for me that was the two saddest scenes for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that found interesting too, just like I've seen this movie a couple of times, once before, maybe two or three times before the pandemic, and then having an actual pandemic, and then seeing that like when that one animal caretaker guy tries to warn Will that like, oh, it's spread because of the uh I think it was no, it was Caesar when he steals the vials and then he like gives all those intelligence powers to the rest of the apes. And then
Mm-hmm.
like the humans around him get infected with like whatever is going to happen for
Mm-hmm.
like the Sicilian flu, I think it was called.
I think so. I think it was like the one ape. I think it was Koba, who we're going to talk about in like the next movie,
Yeah.
where he kind of affects the one scientist who was kind of like Will's friend,
Hmm.
the humanitarian, and he's pretty much patient zero
Hmm.
at that point, and you find that he coughs on the bad neighbor, who you found out later, who is a pilot, and that's how it spreads. Um, and what's scary about that scene, watching it now, is how easily that could actually happen in real life because we've witnessed it.
Hmm.
How easy it is that it could just spread from one thing to another, and how vulnerable the human race is. So I think that was a pretty like I was like, oh wait, we've lived this now. Like watching it probably back in 2011, you would have never thought that kind of pandemic on a global scale would even happen. And then hop in what 9, 10 years later, it's like, well, guess what, guys? Pandemic. So you're yeah, so it's pretty that's pretty an interesting take on that.
Yeah, the like you said, like that part just is absolutely terrifying. Uh, the other part that like we're seeing it now with all these like world conflicts, um the Middle East conflict, the Russia versus Ukraine thing, is that as soon as people see a threat and they have guns, they immediately go off on each other. So for instance, I'm just thinking about how that one scene where Caesar frees all the apes from the sanctuary. They free the other apes from the zoo, and they give them all of the ALZ 113, that canister of stuff, and they're just like, okay, Caesar's literally like, forget the humans. We're gonna go to that redwood forest, and we're just gonna live our lives. And as they're like trying to escape, here's like the entire police force are literally shooting at them, and then they're riding on horses to go out to the redwood forest, and they have to fight their way out. And they're just like, Caesar is even like, wait a minute. I just want us to be left alone. Like, let's just form our own community. It goes back to your point earlier where you were like, you know, they just want to do their own thing and be treated as equals. They don't they don't want any problems, you know? So
Yeah, no. Yeah, and I think yeah, and with that, and I think this is where I get into kind of like my math part of it. It's like I feel like most of the budget went to that one scene on the Golden Gate Bridge
mhm,
because first of all, for 20 this movie came out in 2011.
mhm,
That VFX had no business being or looking as good as it did.
mhm.
I literally watched it for the first time and I'm looking at I'm like, wait, when did this movie came out? Oh, this movie came out 2011. Wait a minute, why does the graphics look way better in 2011 than they do now? And it was amazing, but I think a lot of their budget was spent on that scene because like obviously I don't pretend to be like a VFX artist or anything like that. But from what I've heard is like, you know, we have so many pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge. Like we know what the Golden Gate Bridge looks like. Like we have measurements of the Golden Gate Bridge. Like that's probably the easiest thing to recreate. Anything that's elemental, like water, gas, fire, something that's like kind of unpredictable, that's got to be really difficult. So I feel like that the budget kind of went to that one set piece and it kind of showed at times because it was like you have these like kind of lulls and then like any scene without Caesar, like the scene between like James Franco and Frida or James Franco and John Lithgow, they're all amazing actors, but their scenes are very like and it's kind of like, okay, can we get to the apes now?
I know what you mean actually, because like one minute Caesar's being like Will's wingman to pick up Caroline Frida Pinto. Then the next minute it's like 5 years have gone by. They're now dating and possibly married. And she's telling him like for 5 years she's literally saying to him, gotta ditch uh Caesar. Like let Caesar go live his own life. We have our own life. And I'm just like, I don't really care for this love stuff. Just tell me how Caesar does his thing and like makes his
Yeah.
way in the world.
Yeah. And you know what? I get it. You have to have kind of like a character arc, but it has to make sense within the story. And I feel like it was just like kind of it felt very shoehorned in a little bit. But I think overall I think it was good. Do I think it was great? Probably not, but I think it was a good starter. For somebody
Mhm.
who had never seen a previous Planet of the Apes before, it was a great starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, it was definitely not as intense as if you go back and watch those movies with Charlton Heston, that may have just been him uh overacting, but like those movies are so like you're more on edge watching those movies, but it's not as bad as like the Mark Wahlberg films. We could go back. We'll have to do another episode just watching like how bad that movie was.
We don't talk about Bruno and we don't talk about the Mark
Yeah.
Wahlberg Planet of the Apes.
Ex- yeah, exactly. Exactly. One thing I found interesting just before we move on to Dawn is they so Jacobs shuts down the project and he's like, yeah, we're never doing this again. But then he's like, wait a minute, there is money to be made here. And Will comes back and he's like, the way that the system basically screwed him out of having um Caesar, even though the neighbor attacked Charles, he's like, no, I'm not going to do this to any other ape. And Jacobs is just like, no, no, you will if you want to be paid for it. And so they basically create the next villain going into the next series. I mean, the next movie in Koba, because Koba is so jaded by um, the treatment that he received, getting like all the animal testing and like being guinea pig, for lack of a better phrase. And I thought that part was interesting, where Jacobs was near the end, where Jacobs is on the helicopter trying to escape, and Koba stops them. And because for a second it looked like it was Caesar's face and not Koba's face on the ape that pushes that
For
helicopter
a
up.
second, yeah. For like 2 seconds, I thought it was. I'm like, hold up, wait, pause, freeze, rewind. I'm like, oh, okay, now I understand.
Because like Will's trying to run into the forest, right, to try and convince Caesar to stop, and Caesar's just like, yeah, that wasn't me, man. That was someone else. And I think, matter of fact, if I recall correctly, when Will runs into the forest, it's Koba who jumps down and is about to like kill him, and then Caesar
Mhm.
just shows up and is like, nope, that guy's cool. Like, stay the hell
Yeah,
away.
that guy's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to see like no matter what like no matter how much abuse he took from the humans, Caesar was always like, no, no, no. We can learn to live with these people. And Kobo was on that other side of every argument. That's like, no, no, no. We're gonna fight these guys and we're gonna wipe them all out because they did that to us. So it's interesting seeing that.
Hmm.
I guess before we move on to Dawn, I have three questions for you. One, MVP of the first movie, not including Caesar.
Man,
Least favorite, not including Caesar, and go-to snack when you watch movies.
well, what do you mean by go-to stack?
Like, what's your like if you're at the movies, like if you're watching movies at your house,
Oh,
are
snack. I thought you said stack for a second. I'm like, wait, stack? What are you talking?
no
Snack.
food.
Snack. Food. Okay.
Yeah,
Um, MVP, probably Maurice.
yeah,
Yeah?
yeah,
Yeah?
yeah. I'd say
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah. And we're gonna talk about the rest of them. I don't want to jump the gun or anything, but he's gonna go throughout the trilogy a little bit. He's kind of the MVP.
Mhm.
Um, and then what was your third one? I mean, what was the other one?
Oh, second one was least favorite character.
Least favorite. I mean, in terms of, in terms of maybe just an overall character, maybe the bad neighbor. But I've seen that actor before. He's always kind of played like a he's always kind of played a jerk. He's always he plays jerk very well. So he was probably just my least favorite, but kind of favorite because he did his job. Go to snack. I really like Reese's Pieces. I do like Reese's Pieces with the popcorn.
Oh, nice combo.
Yeah, so I mix it in the popcorn. I learned that from what was it, First Daughter or whatever that movie was. Like the guy mixes the
Yeah,
Reese's
yeah, yeah,
Pieces with the popcorn, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool.
yeah.
But anyway,
On my end, the MVP for me, I would have to say, was Charles. because
Mm,
seeing how he portrayed like the struggle of someone with full on Alzheimer's, and then the change that he had once he took the drug was
hmm
just like night and day, and just like the way that he captured that was awesome. Um, my least favorite person was Caroline, the vet. I didn't care for how she, like, I get that Will needed a love interest sort of thing, but I was also like, if we're focusing on Caesar's rise and origin story, he doesn't need like a mother figure. Like, it's fine. Like, he had lost Bright Eyes as his mom, and now Will was de facto both of his parents, and then suddenly here comes this woman that Will loves, but never cared for Caesar. So I was like, I don't know if I really need her in there. And then my go-to snack at the movies is I would say popcorn too, but not with the, like, I love having the butter in it. Like, I just it is so good. It is so good.
I have to be I have to be careful, man. As much as I love the butter, it has like so much cholesterol.
Yeah,
So much,
yeah.
so much.
Yeah. Okay. So our next movie that we move on to is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. 2014. So it came out 3 years later. Uh, the premise on this one is that essentially the simian flu, which is their version of basically COVID, but like COVID times, like, what would you say, 8 million? Probably,
Yeah, pretty
yeah.
much. Yeah, pretty much.
Like it's such a lethal dose of deadliness to humans that only about 0.2% of the human race is genetically immune. And 10 years have gone by since Caesar and the apes have escaped the zoo and escaped captivity and moved on to the redwood forest, that they get to a point where they take over everything. Um, but they're also living on their own. So there are humans still living amongst everybody else. And no, sorry, there are still human survivors, but they're not with the apes. And the apes have never, what I thought was interesting about this actually, Momo, was that they never grabbed the humans and took them as prisoners or made them slaves, in this version
Hmm
of it. Whereas if you there's an argument that can be made that that's exactly what they did to the apes previously. But the apes
Right.
under Caesar were never like, no, we're taking them captive and they're going to be our slaves and whatnot. Also, what I think's interesting about this is that regardless of who's in charge, horses are always horses and dogs are always like, yo, we're just gonna be your like sidekick or like your uh you
Horses
know
and dogs always, oh, yeah, horses and dogs, they are not they don't get the love that the apes get.
yeah. I remember making that joke to someone. Well, actually, it's something that I say every couple of years. I'm just like, it never seems fair to me that like a dog will always be domesticated. Like, so uh what's interesting is that there's the way that they explain Dawn of the Planet of the Apes is that basically most of the human race has been wiped off the face of the earth. And the apes are living on their own, but then there's, as I noted, there's scattered communities of humans. But we don't know if the humans have gone back to a primary state or if they're still um like just surviving, I guess. Like, what I'm trying to say is basically, in The Walking Dead, how they have like zombie apocalypse, but then they have the humans come. Like when Rick wakes up, there are other humans like him that are like still intelligent and trying
Yeah,
to survive. So it's like that, like where they leave you thinking the simian flu wiped everybody out, but like, do we know if there's humans around?
survivors.
Yeah, survivors. Yeah. So as it turns out, there are a group of humans led by Malcolm. Malcolm is played by Jason Clarke. He basically takes over the role James Franco had in 2011. And
Hmm
so there's uh Malcolm and then his wife, who's played by Kerry Russell, and who's a doctor, and then they have a son who bonds with Maurice. I like those scenes a lot where they were bonding and so forth.
Yeah.
Uh, so what did you make of basically Malcolm leading this expedition to him realizing, you know what, we need to go back to these places where the apes can work with us?
He, that actor has the kind of demeanor and the kind of character he's the kind of character and he has that kind of face where you you want him to do good
Hmm.
and he wants to do good, and but the forces that be are preventing him from doing that. So he kind of has that good facial quality of, I am trying to do good, I am trying to just make this work, but the powers that be are not letting me do this. But I do want to do good, and I want to do good by you. But I also want to do good by my colony. And it's all very conflicting for him. Um, would I do I think one is better than the other? I think that's hard to say because it's different motivations. One was just trying to save his father. The other one was trying to save what is left of humanity,
Hmm.
right? So it's kind of it's apples and oranges at that point. But I did like his character. I think he had a lot to deal with, the fact that's like, oh, I'm trying to like save humanity, but you know, these these apes clearly don't trust me, and rightfully,
Hmm.
but I'm trying to do what's right by my family and all this stuff. So
I thought it was interesting too that Malcolm, as you said, Malcolm tries to uh basically do right by humanity, but then you get I don't even know that dude's name. You know the guy in his party who was just like screw the apes and then
oh, that dude, and I've seen that actor before. He has resting scared face.
Mhm.
He has resting henchman face where he's the kind of guy that's kind of like, he's the kind of guy that you have that shot of the one dude who's like, I'm scared, I want to get out of here, I don't want to be here kind of guy. He has that kind of face. That yeah, he was a great antagonist.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. But he was also like kind of he sort of showed what um humanity thought of the apes in the regard of, they're like, oh, these are just dumb apes. They're not actually intelligent. So for instance, when Caesar lets them in and he says, you know what, no guns. You could research,
Mm.
but no guns. And this guy still brings in a gun, like, oh, they're not gonna know. And then the baby, and then not Blue Eyes, but the other uh Caesar's other son, like finds the is like a kid looking for toys, and he finds the gun.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, what did you think was gonna happen? Of course Caesar's gonna freak out and like attack you. Like you're going after his baby. Like, come on here." So
yeah, yeah. The thing, comparing Rise with Dawn, I at first, like, I had a bit of a problem with Matt Reeves because I'm just gonna be honest with you. I I was not that big of a fan of the Batman. I just wasn't. I understand why people like it, but it just was not for me.
that's the James
But
Patterson one, right?
wait, no, Matt Reeves?
Yeah.
No, the Batman was the one with the Robert. Yeah, that was the Pattinson one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was the Pattinson one. Um, so I wasn't too fond of that. So when I found out that this was directed by Matt Reeves, I'm like, okay. He had his one Batman movie, which I wasn't that big a fan of. Let's see what this is this, and this one blew me away.
Hmm.
It's it was well. I wouldn't say like head and shoulders above Rise, but it was definitely better than Rise.
Oh yeah.
It was definitely better than Rise. I'm like, okay, Matt Reeves, you can direct a movie. It's like, so I I was blown away. I was blown away by the sets. I was blown away by the I was blown away by the direction. And I've just realized something. We've been talking for almost an hour, and we have not mentioned Andy Serkis
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
We have not mentioned Andy Serkis once. And that's incredible to think, because obviously Andy Serkis is a legend. Andy Serkis was absolutely phenomenal as Caesar. Um, I mean, that's just who he is. That's a goat doing goat things.
Mm.
So I just wanted to point that out, like the fact that we've been talking about this and not mentioned Andy Serkis once in the past hours is kind of amazing.
Yeah. I can't even believe an hour went by, but like it's yeah, crazy, crazy. Um, so throughout the movie, Koba basically at the end of Rise, you knew he was going to make a play at some point. Like
Mhm.
the like when he going back to Rise for a second, when he knocks over um no,
Will.
when Caesar knocks him over, sorry, so he
Oh,
knocks over Will, then Caesar comes and saves Will. Um, he gives Caesar a look where you're just like, yeah, he's coming for him. At some point, he's coming for him. I don't know if it's going to be the next movie or the movie after that, but he's going to get him at some point. And basically, Dawn's premise is like Caesar still longs for peace and longs for collaboration, whereas Koba is like, nope, ain't gonna happen. And so Koba does the thing you see in every movie, Lion King, even
X
X-Men,
X-Men.
every,
It's literally Xavier versus Magneto
yeah,
all over again.
yeah, where they have that part where um they stage that the humans did something wrong, but it was actually like a coup that nobody recognized. And then when Caesar disappears, Koba takes over, similar to how Scar takes over for Simba's father. And
hmm
uh, I love Lion King, and I'm drawing a blank on who his father was.
Mufasa,
Mufasa, you know how bad that is?
come
We're
on, man.
we're uh Momo's gonna leave now because I forgot that,
That
but so
so terrible.
yeah,
Your
such a
90s card your
oh man.
90s card is revoked.
I know it's so bad. Considering that I do a 90s podcast sometimes, and I forgot who Mufasa was for a second. Oh my God.
Shut it down. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do like that kind of like they're kind of two sides of the same coin, where they're trying to do is just protect they're all they're trying to do is protect their race. And one is trying to do it through peace and the other one's trying to do it through war. And what I really and I love the and by the way, I love the memes of Koba. Just like everybody's like, insert Koba everywhere. I'm like, all right, internet, you win. You win for the day. Um, but I think it was I like that dynamic between them. It's like, but I mean, we will get into it when we go into war, but it's kind of you kind of see Caesar's weakness as a leader, where he is a little bit too merciful. He's a little bit too merciful in a way that it's like he's a little bit too trusting of humans. And I know he had Will who taught him trust and trust between apes and humans and gave him that hope that apes and humans could live together. But it was throughout these movies, it was shown that that really wasn't going to happen. Um, and then there's also Gary Oldman.
Mhm.
I did not. I was like, wait, Gary Oldman? Wait a
Mhm.
minute.
Commissioner Gordon, what
But
are you doing, man? But
what are you doing in this movie? But yeah, he's always gonna eat. He's always gonna eat
Mhm.
the screen, no matter where he's at.
Yeah. Uh, So I agree with all of what you just said in terms of like the lack of. I mean, I think Koba realizes, as any anti-hero does, that you have to sort of you can't necessarily be kind to everybody. Um,
Mm.
it kind of reminds me of, and this is well, we'll end up going for like 4 hours if I bring this up. So I'll say my comment, but then we'll have to do like another episode about this. But I always believe that Killmonger was actually the hero and Black Panther was the anti-hero in Black Panther.
Mm.
And I have a whole theory about it,
Yeah, now save that for another episode.
yeah, it's gonna definitely be like 4 hours of talking about that. Anyways, the point that I was trying to make with that was that I kind of saw Koba as a good guy in this because he realizes, the humans treated us terribly forever, and now we literally have to move on and or move against them and take over. One part I could have done without was when he kills Rocket's son. I was heartbroken by that. When he threw him over, I was like, "Oh my God!" Like,
Yeah, it was kind of like the thing where it's like, oh, we need to remind everybody he's the villain.
mhm.
He's the bad guy in this.
Yeah, it was interesting too in that Rocket's son was literally like, uh, we kind of like what Caesar was doing. Like, we believe him in the fact that everybody should work together. And Copa's like, "Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Like, we'll be fine." Like I understand your point. And then he literally grabs him, takes him up to like a roof or no, the second story of a building and just chucks him off and is like anybody else. And Blue Eyes and everybody else are like, "Oh my God." Like what happened to no ape will harm another ape? Like
Yeah.
holy shit. Like they're all like holy shit. And you're like, I can't.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait, this guy's bad. This guy's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of one of those things that's like when a general takes over, it's like they're great for if you're like down bad and you need a win, but then you put them in charge and then you realize, oh, you're actually crazy. We shouldn't have put you in charge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was
Uh,
great. It was crazy. But yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but I really liked Dawn. I didn't think I would like it as much as I was going to. I think once again, I think the set pieces were amazing. I think the attack on the human colony was I thought it was really great, especially with like Kobo just with two guns on a
Yeah.
horse,
That's
just going just full on scorched earth, literally. I think that one was great. One thing that I think so how remind me, how many years after Rise was this? Was this 5 years?
10.
10. You would
Or sorry. So uh Rise came out in 2011.
no 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 in
Oh, you
terms
mean
of time.
in storyline. In
Yeah.
storyline it was 10. It was 10 years, yeah.
You would my only like not really plot issue, but it is a plot issue for me. So in Rise, they're just learning to speak and they sign.
Mhm.
It's been 10 years. Why are they still signing? I get why, but I'm just like, why are they still signing? It's been 10 years. And they've learned to talk in those 10 years. Why are they still signing? And I know it did not take that long. Like, what are we doing? But
I have two theories about that. One is I think that when they released the canisters so that they would get their intelligence, it only like the couple of apes that were in that sanctuary, I think were lab rat, for lack of a better phrase, apes. And so they learned how to communicate better and learned how to speak as Caesar did and as Rocket and Maurice eventually
mm-hmm.
did. My
Mm,
other theory is that maybe um they could all speak, but because they wanted to be different from the humans, they continue to do sign language,
okay,
just to differentiate, sort of thing.
that's fair. That's fair. I just was like, I don't know if I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But the way you explained it, yeah, now it makes a little bit of sense.
So just like Rise, we'll go over MVP, least favorite character, and this time I will say, what's your favorite tune at the
Oh,
moment?
ooh. Um, this is gonna sound really strange, but the MVP was Cookbook.
Was Koba? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just gonna say it. He was just it. All of his motivations made perfect sense.
Mm,
They literally made perfect sense. So it's not as if, you know, I'm not saying that he was all that right, but it was just like I get your motivations behind all this. Um, least favorite character? Probably I want to say maybe either the teen that
hmm
they brought with them,
hmm
or just the easy answer would be that jerk guy. I can't remember his name right now, but that dude
hmm
of the humans. Favorite tune? Hmm.
Favorite tune at the moment. At the moment.
At the moment,
Instead of all time, because all time it'll be here forever.
yeah,
But
all time. Yeah, all time would be here forever. I'm gonna throw you a curve. I'm gonna throw you a curveball. It's actually some Debussy, which I don't know if you could see, but it is right behind me. And if you hear a tiny human right now, that is my kid
mm,
basically putting a beach ball in front of my head.
mm,
And yeah, so that's happening.
yeah. Sorry, WC was
Debussy. Debussy. Claude Debussy. Pianist.
oh, okay.
Think-
Oh,
Yeah.
Debussy.
No,
Debussy. Gotcha.
Debussy. No,
Debussy.
not the other one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not the other one.
No, I gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah.
So I'll put that in the show notes afterwards, like Momo's picks, my picks of stuff. Um,
Yes.
for me, the MVP, I agree with you. Koba definitely still. This was like Koba's coming out party. Unfortunately, like he dies. This movie was 10 years ago, so if anyone's like, "Oh, come on, man, listening to this," you had 10 years basically.
You had to Yeah, you had 10 years. You should know by now.
Yeah, he was the star for me in this. Like, just uh, he really can't. He took over and he was great for it. Surprisingly, the least favorite character slash non MVP for me was Caesar. And I'll tell you why. The reason for this is, as you mentioned, he was too naive in terms of how everything was going, and like he longed for peace with the humans, and just his overall, why is this not happening? Can I make this like he reminded me of Oliver Queen in Arrow, where like
Hmm.
I'm such a bad guy. Like, why does this always happen? The boo is me thing, like, really was like, come on, Caesar, like, get yourself together. I mean, his eventual rise back was kind of cool at the end when he fully recovered, thanks to the humans. My favorite song at the moment, I would say, is a okay. It's not fair to say it's a tie, but I have a couple that I want to recommend, but it's not fair. The one that I'll go with, recently I've been blasting uh, Midnight Hour by Jamestown Revival is just
Ooh.
so good. Jamestown Revival is a duo. They do like a soul like blues thing. It's called like Americana. I don't know if I don't know how to describe that genre properly, but uh, they basically harmonize their vocals for everything, and it's like fantastic. I highly recommend it. I can send it to you afterwards if you want to listen.
Okay, yeah, send it.
Okay, great. And now we will go into our final movie, which is War for the Planet of the Apes. Oh, before we get to War, two things. One, um, essentially what happens at the near the end of the movie, uh, Caesar tries to stop Gary Oldman's crew from blowing up everything and also stop Koba from basically destroying the humans. So he's trying to save the world in essence. And Malcolm, played by Jason Clarke, is also trying to save the world. So uh, as Malcolm is trying to stop Gary Oldman's character named Dreyfus from blowing up the colony that they're in, which in effect would then kill all the everybody. Um, Gary Oldman, sorry, Dreyfus says to Malcolm, "It's too late. Even if you stop me, it's too late. Like you can't actually stop me." And Malcolm's like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "We got through on our radios because they were trying throughout the movie to get through on the radios to make contact with other humans to come and save them from the apes." And he's like, "No, we got through. The military is going to be here literally like in a couple
Which
months."
which sets up that next movie.
Which then sets up the next movie. And now we will go into War for Planet of the Apes.
Whoa.
War. So while I am figuring this out, Momo, where can the people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at Mo C. Jones. They can also find me on Instagram at Momo Chan Jones. And that is it. I refuse to call it X. We don't call it X here. It's Twitter. And just it's Twitter. And that's where you guys can find me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And as always, you can find me at Nattering with E on Instagram, Nattering with E here on the pod. Uh, Once again, we're working with Visionaries Global Media, doing some work with them. They also put our pods out on Apple because for some reason Apple wouldn't approve Nattering with E, but where there's a will, there's a way, and we found a way to get on there anyways. Also, big news for anyone who has been with me for ever. I merged both Doodle Brews and Three Cheers, my two blogs, together into one. And we are now called Eric's Nattering Adventures, where basically talk about beer, talk about music, talk about uh, podcasting. So you can check us out there. Also, as Bauer noted a couple episodes ago, um, we have our own Discord group called the Kuiper or Cooper Kuiper Music Group. We debate how we could actually pronounce that name. Uh, it's it's basically the Kuiper Belt, uh, which is near Saturn, looks like a piece of vinyl. And as big music fans, we were like, this totally has to be the name of our group. And so anyone's welcome to join, share your music, create playlists, tell us everything you know about music, and we hang out. It's a great fun time. So you can catch us there too. I'll put a link in the bio in the show notes for where you can find Momo, where you can find me, where you can find the music group and the blog. And right before we move into War for the Planet of the Apes, Momo, I have to ask you the most serious of questions. Does pizza belong on pineapple? I mean, does pineapple belong on pizza?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay. That's fair.
absolutely not.
That's
Absolutely not.
uh oh, and my other serious question was um do you believe Lex Luger should have won the world title from Yokozuna in 1994?
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. I don't know.
Okay, that works.
Oh man,
That works. That works.
I don't know. It's just oh good. It's just it happened. It happened. Let it go.
It's the hill I will die on, is that Lex Luger was screwed, man.
Okay. All right.
Fair enough. Okay, and with that being said, we are now on War for the Planet of the Apes. This will be the last one that we review today. However, as everybody may know at this point, on May 25th, 2024, uh, the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the fourth one in this, uh, just came out recently. Momo
Mhm.
actually saw it. I still have to see it, so we'll have to do another episode eventually. Perhaps talking about it, perhaps talking about more Planet of the Apes or other movies. Before we wrap up with War for Planet of the Apes, Momo, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and I'm very happy
You.
that we finally got it going on.
Yes, man, the behind the scenes trying to get this thing together was wild.
Yeah, yeah,
Just thing after thing after thing was happening and trying to get it together. And we finally did it. We finally did it for the people.
yeah. I'm thrilled that Mike put us in touch where he was like, "Yeah, Momo and Leg are going to be on my WrestleMania stream. You should hop on too." And then like got to hang out for those couple days. So I'm glad that we have connected.
Nice.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right. So War for the Planet of the Apes. The plot line here is 2 years have gone by following the battle in San Francisco, where uh, the Alpha Omega human militia, aided by apes, derogatorily called donkeys, including a gorilla named Red, search for Caesar's ape colony. For a little background on this, basically, when Koba took out Caesar as part of blaming the humans, he there was a divisive faction. There were the Caesar supporters and there were the Koba supporters. Koba's supporters took over while Caesar was missing, and Caesar's supporters were locked up away in prison. That included Rocket, Maurice, and Luca. Um, Anyways, after the events of Dawn of Planet of the Apes, where Caesar's tribe of apes basically saved the world, along with Malcolm, who uh, Caesar encourages to run away before this new militia comes and fights the apes. Uh, Koba's apes, who did not want to come back to Caesar's tribe, ran off and they joined up with this Alpha Omega militia to be called the donkeys and go against the other apes. So uh, a big theme of the first two movies was having um, this Caesar had this rule basically where it was like apes won't harm other apes. Koba was like, nope, if you're not with me, I'll harm you regardless of if you're an ape or a human. And these other apes who felt that way were like, you know what? We'll join this crazy militia, but because it seems like a better option than going with Caesar. So
Mhm.
the main bad guy in this is uh Icon from the classic show Will and Grace, Woody Harrelson. Uh
Woody, the
Woody Har
goat.
Woody Harrelson comes in and he's the main bad guy in this. He's the leader of the Alpha Omega. So before we go further in this recap, what did you think of basically two things here? One, Koba's supporters actually joining the humans after their main fight for the last two being anti-human, and Woody Harrelson coming on to be the new bad guy.
Well, obviously, Woody Harrelson is I love Woody Harrelson. I think he's not honestly I think he's underrated. He's one of those actors like I kind of wish that Matthew McConaughey didn't exist so that Woody Harrelson could shine like the king he is. I think he played a fantastic bad guy. Obviously that one scene where he like ignores the orders from the higher powers is like, nope, we're killing everybody because everything's kind of been mutated now. And it's like, oh, you're crazy. And he kind of spoiler alert, he kind of gets his comeuppance at the end anyway.
Mhm.
But it makes sense that there would be people that are like, okay, we're not with we're not with Caesar because every time we were with Caesar, somebody's getting deaded.
Mm.
Um, and with Koba, we're definitely getting deaded. So we might as well just join the humans and just, you know, not get. We don't want to die. That's it's self-preservation. We just don't want to die. We want to be in the situation where we do not get killed. And if that means going with humans and they capture us again, then so be it. At least we're alive. That's what I got from it. Um, I but it also makes perfect sense for in that regard.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too that one of the ongoing themes of the three movies is that the humans did not uh, 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 spare for a handful. The humans did not uh, accept the apes as
No.
equals.
Nope.
So so even though they were like, "Hey, we're here to join you," like Koba's former followers, like the militia, we're here to follow you. They immediately brand them as donkeys, and they would call them like Donkey One, Donkey Two, Donkey Three. Uh, hey God, 1 second. We'll be right back. Thanks for bearing with us on that quick break. So as we were talking about the humans basically throughout this series have never considered the apes to be equal. And while Caesar and his followers kind of want that, like you could tell Maurice is a bit of a pacifist as well. Um, Rocket is he just goes with Caesar. He's like that one friend where no matter how crazy your ideas might be, he's like, I'm with you. That's all I care about, man. Like that's it. As long as we chill, that's all I care about. And I don't know if that's good or bad. Um, so throughout the movie, we see that Woody Harrelson's character named they just call him the Colonel.
Colonel.
Colonel. He gets crazy in the sense that at one point he thinks that he's assassinating Caesar, but he actually kills Blue Eyes and he kills um his wife, Caesar's wife,
Cornel.
Cornelia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Cornelia. And then luckily Caesar's younger son, who was a baby in Dawn of Planet of the Apes, who's now a little bit more grown up. He's still a young kid, but he's not a baby anymore. Um, named Cornelius.
Mm.
He survives the attack, but Cornelia and Blue Eyes both get murdered. Um, Caesar basically goes into Rambo Oliver Queen mode, and what I mean by that is that he tried or Jon Snow mode, I guess would be the best way to put it, where he's like, "Oh, you guys go this way." Tells everybody who supports him, "Go this way. I'm gonna go do my thing." And his buddies, Rocket, Maurice, and Luca are all like, "No, no, we're coming with you, man. Like you can't just leave.
You
Like
can't
we're
do that. You can't do this alone.
yeah." And he's like, "No, too bad." And then what happens is they end up meeting this girl who is mute, and they're like, "That's weird. Like we're used to us not talking and doing sign language, but why can't the humans speak?" And as it turns out, the simian flu has actually evolved, which is a scary thing to think about because now after we've had COVID in the real life, nobody's thought well like there's different versions of COVID as it's sort of advanced and it's very much not over, but people are like,
Mhm.
no, no, it's done. And so it's a little bit unnerving to see that the simian flu not only mutates, but there's like some serious side effects that we find out throughout the movie
Yeah,
that can happen.
basically dumbs the humans down like to primal level.
Yeah. And so as Caesar's on this revenge mission to kill the colonel because he killed his wife and son, he's like uh he and Maurice and Rocket are all like uh yeah, why are there humans being hung upside down and like being murdered and stuff? Like, who's murdering them? Like, is Koba still alive? Because at the end of Dawn, Koba takes like a fall like 100 stories down. And you're like, did he survive that shit? Like, how is this happening, basically?
Yeah.
And so what's interesting about or not interesting, but just to go back to the part where the Colonel kills part of Caesar's family is we find out that there was a mole in Caesar's
Yep.
colony, and that turns out to be someone. Oh shit, what was the name of that guy? He was the albino ape. That albino ape was a
Yes.
bad guy. And what happens is they track down.
Red. Wasn't it red?
No, Red was the donkey
No.
that comes and saves him at the end there.
Yes. Who is it?
I think it was just an albino ape. They didn't really
Mm.
say his name.
Oh.
Uh, but long story longer. They track down the albino ape, and they're like, "Hey, like, what the hell?" And he reveals, like, "Oh, the humans, I didn't trust you anymore. Basically, everybody cast me aside, and so, um, they." Sorry, you may have heard my dog barking in the background. She's also part of the podcast, apparently. Anyways, the albino ape essentially says, like, look, I didn't trust you guys. The colonel said he was going to spare me, so I gave you all up, and that eventually leads to you guys um almost being murdered. And so Maurice, Luca, and Rocket are all holding the albino ape, and Caesar has his hand over the albino ape's mouth, and he doesn't realize that he's actually suffocating him. And they end up killing him within one of the militia bases that they go to. They eventually, like, since they have to run away, they find this mute girl who has a doll, which we'll later find out has part of the simian flu on it.
Right.
And so I'll let you take it from there after.
Yeah, because it's so funny. It's so funny that something so innocent can be so deadly. Like, it's such it's kind of a master stroke, really.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, this is a person. Oh, she was adult. Turns out it literally is killing you. And that was kind of the theme. And I like that theme is like it could be something so insignificant, but it could also kill you. One thing that was kind of a surprise that I also think was kind of a masterstroke was so Caesar releases like some of the prisoners as like kind of a peace gesture, and one of those prisoners ends up being the one that wounds him. And I thought that was so it goes back to what I said was Caesar's biggest downfall was his trust.
Mhm.
And it was such like a perfect storm, or I can't even think, but it was so perfect to make it so that, oh, it was your trust in humans that killed you. And I think that was just so brilliant to think about. But and also thinking of just Woody Harrelson, who's a pretty big, I'd say a pretty big strong man, to be just reduced by a doll.
Mhm.
Again, something so innocent and seemingly not very like it's a doll. You don't think much of it, but then it ends up killing you. It's kind of representative of, the apes that you don't think about them as such, but they can literally kill you
Mhm.
and don't need that much to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. That bef- yeah, so with the Colonel, what was kind of interesting was uh so Caesar gets captured, tried to like basically go find this guy to kill him. They bring him to the tent, and he's like the Colonel's like, "Why are you coming after me, man?" He's like, you killed my son and my wife, right?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my bad."
It's like, whoops.
He's like, whoops. Well, anyways, and then he tries to like justify it. He's like, the truth is that the reason why we're going after you guys is so that we could be in the good books of when the rest of the military comes. Because as Momo mentioned earlier, the Alpha Omega human militia basically branched off from the higher ups of the military. Those higher ups were like, it's weird because they gave you this sense of hope that the reason that the higher ups were against him, the colonel and his guys, was because they wanted peace with the apes. They didn't want peace. They just wanted to be in full on control. And so later on in the colonel basically says, like, the virus is mutated. I had to actually kill my own son because he had gone completely crazy, and I didn't want him to suffer anymore, so I murdered him. I even killed my own troops because they were infected, and we basically tried to kill everybody so that they wouldn't infect the rest of us. uh he seems like a bit of a crazy guy, but I mean, to a degree, you kind of could see why he was doing what he was doing. I mean, he wasn't necessarily looking for a cure to the simian flu, but he was like, I'm going to kill as many people as I can so that I can uh, avoid this. And then, as you mentioned, this doll basically takes him out. So,
Yeah. I think it's one of those things. Again, self-preservation.
Mhm.
Self-preservation. You do what you can to survive, even if it means killing your own troops. You'll do what you can to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. What I found, so there's one scene that actually was kind of hilarious to me, and that was when Caesar tries to go attack that like little arc part of the colony. And so the guy who had shot him, the prisoner who had shot him, goes to
Mm-hmm.
execute him. And Red, I guess, is sick of being called a donkey, so he like blows him up with a bazooka. And then and then he nods to Caesar like, yeah, I got your back, man. I had an epiphany. I got your back. And then that guy who wanted the bullets just turns around, pulls out a gun, and kills him. I was like,
Well,
this is terrible, but it's also hilarious at the same time. So
it's terrible. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I thought this movie as a whole, um, it was. I mean, this trilogy in general is very much. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end, and it all comes down to Caesar. Caesar has a beginning, Caesar has a middle, and Caesar has an end. And he has to. I don't think it's hard when you're a leader, but it's also hard to not compromise your morals doing it, right? Because he was doing everything necessary without killing to bring peace to the apes. That's it. And there were a few times where he had to like compromise, like obviously with Koba death, obviously like letting Koba die, um, almost killing the colonel, and then like kind of like the colonel dies on his own. But I think overall he's like, yeah, all I wanted to bring was peace. And at the end he kind of got that. He got that peace of mind, like everyone will know what I did for the good of my species. That's it. But and also Steve, I did not realize until afterwards that was Steve Zahn as Bad Ape.
oh yes, yeah,
I
Bad Ape
didn't
was
realize.
hilarious.
I
Yeah.
I did not realize that was Steve Zahn. I'm like, oh, Steve Zahn got a job. We love to see it. And then also Andy Serkis doing Andy Serkis things. Duh. Okay, I have a question for you. Out of these three movies, Rise, Dawn, and War, where was Andy Serkis's best performance?
I think it was Rise, to be honest with you. I think it was Rise. Just seeing how he
I
evolved,
kind
and
of
yeah.
I kind of agree. I think Rise was good. I think Rise was a really great performance from him. I think the one scene in War with him and the Colonel, I think was great. Just between two actors,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
brilliant scene.
Yeah.
Brilliant scene. And they hardly said a word to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or even when they had that part where the colonel's giving that like that speech that he gives where he explains like how humans are devolving and he's not gonna like let himself be that way, and it was just strictly business that he was taking out Caesar. Like it wasn't anything personal to him. He just like it was just business for him. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was such a strong scene in the movie. Um,
Yeah.
and then yeah, for Andy Serkis, I thought like yeah, he was pretty good as Caesar. I liked the fact like he was very much the lead, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it felt like throughout the other two movies, Dawn and War of Planet of the Apes, they really let the other characters like breathe a little.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah, so it was nice that way. It was I thought it was a great series overall.
Yeah, overall a really great series. I don't know when we're gonna talk about Kingdom. Um but it'll be an interesting take because this was one without Andy, and at a later date I'm curious to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm planning to watch it at some point this week, so
Please do, because I think you'll like it.
absolutely. Well, for Momo, this is Eric. Thanks so much for joining us on Nattering with E Goes to the Movies. And we'll see you around. Oh, also, we decided just before we go, we decided that the fans will be called the E's. So E's,
I love that.
thank you, thank you, E's, and we'll see you around.
Bye.
So that's it for this week's episode of Nattering with E at the Movies. We'll be trying to do these once a month. Typically, we'll post them on Sundays with a recording earlier in the week. So if you'd like to have a movie on the podcast that you want us to review, or if you want to join me to review, please do get a hold of me at natteringwithe@gmail.com or at natteringwithe on Instagram. All right, peace.